Hey friends, welcome back to Burn Stress, Lose Weight. Today's podcast episode is all about one very simple concept that I wish I knew a few years ago. It is the one thing that I would absolutely change in my journey to lose weight. And it's a lesson that I have had to learn the hard way. And if you know anything about this podcast and my goal for this podcast and my mission really here with all of you is I want to help you not take as many plot twists and detours as I did. And this is one of the big ones. The concept centers around what you're rewarding. Growing up, I would say that if you're listening to this podcast and you identify as an overachiever as well, likely one of the areas that you experienced a lot of reward was when you did well on something. It's why we love the A pluses and the gold stars, why we love succeeding, the positive feedback or words of affirmation. They feel really, really good. And if you've been following along the podcast recently, I've been talking a lot about how much overachievers especially really hinge a lot of our confidence and our belief in ourselves in those results. But what this came at a cost at for me personally was it made the process, it made follow through, it made how I was showing up in achieving those goals feel extremely punishing. I would be very willing to punish myself in the process simply to succeed. I would create punishing study schedules. I would create punishing weight loss strategies. I would create very punishing work regimens simply because I wanted to experience the gold star at the end of the project. If you're listening to this podcast and you've been listening for a little while, you might have realized that really focusing your reward on just the gold star at the end of your project, at the end of your journey, keeps most overachievers on a perpetual hamster wheel. It never feels like you're doing enough. It feels like you could always do a little bit more. You could have always pushed a little bit harder. You could have added a few more things to your to-do list. This is part of the reason that even when you see the scale trend down by a pound, or you do get the A plus, the gold star, the positive feedback from a friend or a colleague or loved one, the feeling of satisfaction and pride lasts for just a few minutes. Because most of us have trained our brain for rewarding only the gold star at the end, our brain starts chasing the next gold star. If you're listening to this and that resonates with you, I want you to just sit with the cost of that. We can spend our entire life, and many of us do, jumping from gold star to gold star for the next A plus, the next achievement, and the entire time in between in our pursuit of the journey, in our pursuit of the promotion, the weight loss goals, the next career move you have, you can feel incredibly empty. I'm sharing this concept because this is how I learned the lesson. When I first started on my weight loss journey, I weighed a little over 200 pounds. I had tried so many things in the past, some of which worked for short periods of time, but never really lasted. A few years ago, I finally learned the impact of having a science-informed strategy that was also married to a mindset that drove me to show up and follow through on my plan. As I took this plan and started putting it into action, I experienced a lot of wins. The scale started trending down. My hunger pangs and my irritability and my urges and cravings started to feel a lot steadier and a lot more control. And so in the process of me losing the weight, I was having dopamine hit after dopamine hit every single time I would step on the scale, see the 3-digit number on the scale trend down. I created a lot of reward. Now, this is not a bad thing at all. We all want to experience reward like this, but I wasn't paying any attention to or rewarding myself in the process. I wasn't at all acknowledging the effort that I was putting in. Every single time I followed through in a challenging moment, I didn't sit and actually acknowledge myself for that moment. I was simply waiting for the number on the scale to trend down. Now, here's what happened. Over the course of 18 months, I lost about 60 pounds. I experienced many imperfect moments, lots of up and downs, challenging life seasons, very unpredictable schedules. My kids were very young at the time. I was on call at the hospital. All kinds of shenanigans were entering and exiting my life. And I had a strategy in my back pocket, which is what we do together here on this podcast, to help me create real results. The moment that I hit the quote unquote finish line, when I achieved my goal, when I was at my goal weight, all of a sudden I wasn't getting that high of dopamine hits because I had reached my goal. This is the part of the journey that not many people are talking about. When you get to your goal weight, what happens after that? All of a sudden, the excitement from the journey completely withers away, which is why so many of us, when you get to that state of boredom with your weight loss plan or your weight loss journey, you might notice that the creep back starts to happen. The creep back, which we've all experienced, happens for 3 reasons. The first reason is you simply became complacent. You had a winning strategy that got you to your goal, and you simply went back to old habits. You forgot to cultivate and really pay attention to how your new habits are amazing, why they serve your goal, and your very normal tendency was to revert back to old habits. And so complacency is a reason that you might have gained it back. The second reason, and this is such a big one, is weight loss became boring. And here's the reality. I want weight loss and your body goals to become boring. Too many of us are looking at the pound down on the scale for our source of excitement or joy or pride. But this is the exact reason that maintenance becomes near impossible. When you get to that phase where maintenance becomes boring, your strategy feels boring, guess what your brain starts to do? It starts to look for excitement again. It's starting to look for that dopamine hit that you used to be getting with the scale trending down, and it starts to completely bamboozle your results. This is where you'll have a lot of just one time. It's just a little bit. This time doesn't matter. I'm already at my goal. So many stories in your brain. I call these 3C stories because they're convincing, they're compelling, and they're very, very convenient for you to completely undo a lot of your wins. We've talked about boredom on the podcast before. I think this is a great opportunity to practice discomfort tolerance, to grow your tolerance to feel boredom, to find joy and excitement in other parts of your life, not with weight loss and not with your body goal. But truly, this is a reason that so many of us have gained the weight back. And the third reason, which is the entire core premise of this podcast episode, is I never rewarded myself for following through. My reward was hinging on the 3-digit number changing. That is where I got my sense of pride. That's where I would allow myself to believe that it's working, that I'm doing a good job, that I'm figuring this out. That is where I held all of my value, was the 3-digit number on the scale trending down. So the moment that that didn't need to change anymore, guess what happened? All of my thoughts around believing in myself, solving this problem, completely withered away. I had not been rewarding my follow through. And I realized because after I got to my goal weight, I actually gained about 7 to 8 pounds back very quickly, mostly for reasons number 2 and number 3. And this was a core reason. I was still thinking about my weight loss plan as a diet. I was thinking about it as something that I have to do to maintain my results. And even though it was a way of eating that I genuinely enjoyed, I was thinking about it almost like another full-time job. This is one of the reasons that I have been talking so much over the last few weeks and months about turning your weight loss strategy into a lifestyle upgrade. How do we ever take a way of eating and the way that we're treating our bodies and moving our bodies and exercising and the nutrition we're eating and turn it into a lifestyle upgrade? It happens by rewarding yourself for following through. This means rather than waiting for the pound down on the scale to feel proud of yourself, rather than waiting for that number to change for you to tell yourself that you're doing an amazing job, that you're figuring this out, that this feels amazing, imagine what would happen if you started to reward yourself every single time you follow through on yourself. Every single time you properly planned for the week, you had high quality nutrition, you followed hunger and satiety, you moved your body lovingly. Imagine every single time you planned and followed through on your dream goals, that you had a thought like, I'm figuring this out. This feels amazing. I am so proud of myself. This is a really simple practice, but it's a powerful one that will retrain and rewire your brain to crave following through. I have heard from so many of you, and I've talked with so many clients when they first come to work with me, where they say, I just want to follow through. Right? Or I just want to do what I said I was going to do. I know that my future self will be so grateful. I know that I made this plan, but in the moment, sometimes I don't feel like it. And the reason that those urges or cravings to go sideways, to not follow your plan, to procrastinate, snack, or scroll can be exceptionally strong is because the outcome has been rewarded. Every single time you snack, scroll, or procrastinate, your brain releases dopamine, which means that behavior gets rewarded. Every single time the scale trends down or you see the number change, you get a dopamine hit, which means that part of your journey is being rewarded. Imagine that we repurposed where we were placing our pride and we put all of it into following through. I started to do this practice probably about 3 years ago after I gained the 7 to 8 pounds back, and I realized that something was missing from my maintenance strategy. I had a great plan that I loved and trusted. I was eating in a way that I genuinely enjoyed, that supported my hormone health and my vitality. It was something that I could have in my back pocket and travel with. I didn't have to count calories or points. It was genuinely an amazing plan, but there was a gap for me in maintaining my results in a way that felt like a lifestyle. This is when I started to completely change where I was placing my pride. The truth is, the behavior that you reward are the behaviors that turn into habits. And if you're like me, if you're a busy overachiever that has lots of responsibilities, you likely don't want your weight loss strategy or your body goal to feel like another full-time job. But it will stay a full-time job if you keep rewarding only the final product and not the process. Before I share how I have rewired my brain and turned my habits into a lifestyle and a practice that I'm going to encourage all of you to start doing as well, I want to first share with you what will get in the way of this for you. Most overachievers are over-indexing on their results. This is where you have gotten a sense of confidence and belief in yourself. It's very normal because this is what the educational system has trained us to do. We believe that we are worthy and valuable when we're overworking, when we're always producing. We only feel valuable when we get the A+ or the gold star or the positive feedback from clients, from colleagues, and from loved ones. And so allowing yourself to detach from your results might feel really disconcerting. And I want to just preface this by saying feeling detached from your results doesn't mean that you don't care about your results. I very much care about the A+ and the gold stars and the positive feedback. This is not to negate those things. What this podcast episode is about is allowing yourself to be a little unbothered about the gold star, allowing yourself to feel a little detached from the number on the scale or from the words of affirmation from a colleague or a partner is going to let you do this level of the deeper work. Because while your sole focus and everything in your vision is just the final product, the gold star or the A+, it will feel really impossible to do this piece of the process. The other reason that this might be particularly challenging for you if you're an overachiever, especially if you're a professional woman, is based on the stress archetype that you're living in. We all have different stress archetypes that we are primarily operating out of. If you are someone that is an overachiever, you likely are operating from one of these stress archetypes in your career or maybe even in your home. And these stress archetypes can take you out of actually experiencing satisfaction, pride, and joy in the process of you achieving your goal. I created an entire stress quiz. It's 10 questions that walks you through some of your very common patterns that you might notice in the workplace, in your families, and of course with weight loss. And it will reveal to you after you take the 10-question quiz what your primary stress archetype is. And this is why it's so helpful to know what your patterns are. Your automatic patterns drive some of your most common behaviors. So if you're someone that bases a lot of your self-worth, value, and pride only on the results, it is likely because you have a stress archetype at play. If you want to discover your stress archetype, I strongly encourage you go and take the quiz. It's really fun to get to know yourself. You're going to be taken to a results page that will give you your personal stress archetype. Your results page will also have specific resources on how to walk through those very normal moments. And once you get to the results page, if you're like me, you're going to want to snoop on the other stress archetypes because we all sometimes have the other ones at play. You're going to get to take a look at all of the different result archetypes and learn from every single type. You can go and grab that quiz over at burnstressloseweight.com/stress. It's 10 questions. It's really simple to do. It's really nice to get to know yourself. And of course, you'll have some resources on how to meet yourself in those very normal moments. But this brings me back to the deeper work of detaching your pride, self-worth, and value just from the results and bringing your attention, your acknowledgement, and your awareness to the process. Rather than waiting for the end of the week for the A+ or the scale to trend down, imagine that on a daily basis, every single time you did what you said you were going to do, every single time you followed through in that moment, every single time you allowed an urge to come and go, every single time you went to the gym when you said you would, imagine that you experienced just a moment of pride in that moment. It can be something as simple as telling yourself, I'm so proud of you for following through. This is an incredibly simple practice. It's one that takes no more of your time, but it will rewire your brain to actually crave following through. The other thing, if you're bougie like me and you want to attach even more reward to the process, imagine actually stacking your following through with something you genuinely love doing. This is an example that I've shared on the podcast before, but I've historically never thought of myself as someone that loves the gym. I've actually been a very strong, I don't love the gym kind of person for many, many years of my life. And I realized a few years ago, if I have a body goal and a fitness goal, me hating the gym was not the identity of someone that's going to get results at the gym. And this was a big part of me evolving that identity. Rather than just focusing on percent body fat and percent muscle mass and specific body metrics, I started to reward myself for going to the gym. I had thoughts like, I'm so proud of you for getting up early. I'm so proud of you for showing up even though you didn't want to. I'm so proud of you for lifting those weights even though it was so hard. I feel so good for following through. These are simple sentences that take less than 5 seconds, but rewire your brain to actually follow through. And also, here's the other bougie thing that I started doing, which I've shared on the podcast before. I started going to the sauna for just a few minutes every single time I went to the gym. Now, this is an extra step. It's something that I could only do when I had the time, but it's something that I made a few extra minutes for because I realized that my body viscerally feels so amazing every single time I sauna. So part of my brain started to attach going to the gym with the reward I was going to experience in the sauna. And this is the wildest part. I started doing this probably at the beginning of 2025. I would say halfway through the year, I actually started craving going to the gym. Not because I wanted to put on the shoes and get the gym clothes on and drive to the gym, because those are the tedious parts of the process. I started to crave the reward of the sauna. So these are 2 separate ways that you can start to reward yourself in the process, actually falling in love with the process, telling yourself why it's amazing, actually saying words to yourself like, I'm so proud of you for doing what you said. I'm so proud of you for following through. If you have a really challenging workday or a difficult case or a hard project coming up, actually telling yourself, I'm so proud of you for doing the hard thing. I'm so proud of you for saying the uncomfortable thing. Then additionally adding on that additional layer, again, that's the bougie step. If you want to do it, amazing. If you don't want to, that's okay. But these 2 steps hand in hand really do rewire your brain to turn any plan you have into a lifestyle. And I think that that's what all of us want. We don't want to just have a static piece of paper that tells us good food, bad food, what we're supposed to do, what we're not supposed to do. We want our habits to turn into a lifestyle. And the way that we do that is we have to detach from the results and we have to get a lot more attached to the process. When you do this, what starts to happen over time is the little fluctuations, the small up and downs, the little imperfect moments, when the scale might be up a pound or when you didn't do exactly what you said, you don't completely throw out the entire strategy. You don't go to complete disbelief. You don't completely lose your confidence because your pride and your belief in yourself is not hinging completely on the results. Your focus has been on the process. I have realized that just this shift of detaching from the results, while they're amazing, and I think about them like cherry on top of an already delicious cake, and attaching to the process, feeling proud of myself for showing up, choosing to do the hard thing, saying the vulnerable thing, sharing the hard moment is actually where I have started to crave follow through. It will allow you to feel better on the journey. It starts to make weight loss, your body goal, your next big personal or professional goal start to feel like a little bit more fun and less like another to-do or job you have to cross off. And to me, that is how we start to create results that stand the test of your life. If this process feels a little clunky or uncomfortable or disconcerting, just let it be. That's okay. Just start to notice this week, how often are you placing a lot of your self-worth, your value, and your pride on the results of finishing off the to-do list, of getting the positive feedback, of seeing the scale trend down? And imagine what the impact would be if you shifted your focus to following through on what you said. It is going to create such an incredible amount of joy. You're going to feel so much better on the inside. And in my experience, it will actually start creating bigger and faster wins for you on and off the scale. I hope you enjoyed this concept today. And it's one that truly has made a big difference for me, especially once I hit my goal weight. I noticed that this was missing for me in the process, the boredom of maintenance. And also I had never created pride and love of following through, which is why I started to completely go off track. I hope you found this episode helpful. If you did, share it with a friend. And if you want to discover what your stress archetype is, which patterns you might be having at play, which will maybe prevent you from doing this deeper work, then make sure you head over to burnstressloseweight.com/stress. Grab that stress quiz. It's 10 questions that will let you get to know yourself just a little bit better and get to the results page where I will share with you some personal resources that might be helpful. And I will email you your results as well so you can get a deeper dive on all of it. I hope you guys all have an amazing day and I will see you at the next one. Bye. One lesson that I have learned over the years is when women feel better on the inside out, everyone around them gets to benefit. your career, your family, you all get to claim the up level. So if today's podcast episode gave you a new way to think or maybe challenged an old perspective that you've had, take it with you the rest of this week. And if this podcast episode resonated with you, I would love it so much if you could leave us a rating and review and share this episode with a friend or in your local community. And if you know you want more support and structure in achieving your body goals this year, it might be time for us to work together. Head over to www.burnstressloseweight.com where I have the latest resources and all of the information about how you can work with me. I hope you guys have an amazing week, and I will see you at the next one.